Hey, this is Jess and Johan with Quest AI. We want to get into the discussion of getting AI into production, and I'll hand it off to Johan.
Right. Hey. And I'm going to share my screen just so we can kind of have something to follow. Great. So when we start with AI projects, one of the biggest questions we always get is how long is this going to take and, what is involved? So what we've done is we've laid out a process, and that process typically starts on the left-hand side, as you can see, with a discovery call or a workshop. Very often clients will say, you know what, we don't really know what's the use cases to use for AI project. And that's where the workshops come in. Other clients might say, you know what, we know exactly what we need to do. We just don't have the AI resources or the knowledge to get it started. And that's where the discovery call comes in. So assume those are the entry points. What we typically want to do is we want to do a proof of concept, which takes approximately 8 to 10 weeks. Sometimes it could take, maybe a little longer, 12 to 14 weeks. But for the most part, most projects is going to be this 8 to 10 week cycle. Now you'll see there's a go, no-go decision that gets made. So what we've done at Quest AI, we've developed a process where there's 6 phases to AI projects. And during the first 2 phases, we do a data and a business understanding phase. And what it means is we basically look at your data and we're like, do you have the right data? Do you have the enough data or the right quality of data to actually, if we combine it with algorithms, solve your business problem? So we take the first 2 phases of a project to determine that. At the end of that, we sit with the client and we go through a report and we say, this is the data, here's the business requirements. And if everything checks out, let's continue the project. Or if it doesn't, do we stop the project, go get the data, or do we pivot and maybe solve another problem or another use case that we saw we could actually solve with this data? So that's why we like to address it like that without chewing off a six-month project or even a 12-week project. We want to know as early as possible. Once we know you have the data that meets the business requirements, now we can continue. From there, we typically work on refining the models to a point where it's good enough. And the reason I say good enough, you'll hear when you read up about AI models that people talk about precision, recall, accuracy, and the R square and AUC and all these measurements, right? Those are data science terms to measure model performance. What they don't take into account is how well does that actually meet the business requirement? And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're trying to shave off out of an 8-hour shift. You want to save 2 hours a day for employees. Now, you can have a model that can probably achieve that, but the model only performs at a 80% accuracy. But it saves you the 2 hours that you wanted to save. So if you put the time and effort and money towards trying to get a model that's 99% accurate, you're really wasting money because you don't need that. So that is one of the things that we do when we do the proof of concept is, what is the actual business problem that you're trying to solve? And at the end of the project, how well did we solve that? And can we solve it by continuing? Now, the next question is we usually get, okay, now we have the proof of concept. What do we get from there? Well, we have the feasibility report. We have a candidate model, a baseline model we can build on, right? And then we also have a roadmap and a timeline. And we jump into the next phase, which is typically a pilot or an MVP. And the difference is really, there's nuanced differences. Some companies just, call it both. So I look at it as like the next 12 to 16 weeks, we're going to take this model, put it in front of real users, get feedback. It could be a beta rollout where we have beta users. It could be a select group of people that want to use it internally before it goes externally. Whatever that is, that's going to be the time where we test this model in production without just setting it loose. And then operationalizing it. And there's many ways to go with that. We have basically 3 main areas that we address. One is, the client owns it all and we hand it off to them and they basically take care from that point forward of supporting it without having to involve Quest AI. Many clients feel comfortable doing that because they have the right resources. They just didn't have people to finish up a POC or a pilot for them. So that's why they brought us in. Other clients might say, you know what? We want to own some of the roles, but we want you guys to help us with some of the other roles. And what we'll do in that case is look at project management, data science. Those are probably the key roles where we can deliver value because the project manager have a good sense of managing and running AI projects. And the data scientist, obviously, a lot of companies don't necessarily want to go and hire a bunch of data scientists to manage their projects. We can also do it all. We have clients where they're just, you know what, we're not in the business of building software and stuff. We're selling pencils, or we're, booking cruises. That's our main line of business. But we want you guys to manage this, and we want you to manage it end to end. And in that case, we support the project development, and then after the project, just the maintenance and, how it goes on. The reason I mentioned the ongoing maintenance as well is that don't think of any AI project as done. It's never done. And that's something people just need to be honest about. As the data changes, the model won't perform as well as it did before. Unless you have a feedback loop that constantly trains it, think of it like this. If you learned everything you learned up to the age of 16, and you stop learning, everything you do from that point forward, you're only going to have knowledge to handle it with your experience up to the point of being 16. So it's the same with an AI model. When you train it and you deploy it, it's a time, just a point in time. So you have to constantly manage and either retrain it or have some kind of feedback loop that makes sure that it keeps up to date. That maintenance and monitoring is something that we always, either we train and we work with the DevOps teams for clients, or we manage that and we, inform our clients when a model is not performing as good as it should. We start giving them feedback and say, okay, we maybe have another month, but we need to really start working on retraining this model to keep it from going to the point where the end user is going to find out it's not working as well anymore. And that is basically our project or our process of how we manage AI projects.
Thank you.